everyone. Welcome to Interviewing Skills and Child Protective Services. I am Tiffany, and I will be your instructor on today. I will be teaching you interviewing skills for Child Protective Services, which is one of the hardest and hard careers that I have been in thus far. You see a lot. You see a lot of trauma. You see a lot of abuse. You see a lot of neglect. You see a lot of dirty houses. You see a lot. This presentation will prepare you for the field as you are new CPS workers. And it will prepare you for the field and to build your cases. And we'll talk about what the cases are and how to build a case, and it's a puzzle piece. And we're going to use a PowerPoint presentation to do that. Alright, so first up we have our agenda. We're going to do introduction of the instructor, as I've already done, and of you all. You introduce yourselves. We will do an introduction to the case study, which is Hannah. Hannah's been through a little bit of trauma that we're going to talk about today and create questions around Hannah's case. We're going to build the case and make the puzzle pieces connect. And then I'm going to give you some background on Child Protective Services, basically what it is and who is mandated reporters, what type of cases there is by the state of Virginia that's mandated. And also we're going to be defining family assessments and investigations. When we get to the group assignment, we will break off into pairs and we will create interview questions to interview the key people in Hannah's case. And at the end, questions and comments. If you have any feedback for me towards the end, please by all means share it. If you have any questions at any point during the presentation or during the lesson, please stop me and I will answer your questions to the best of my ability. Alright, so after today's lesson, you will be able to understand the difference between a family assessment and an investigation. You'll be able to identify effectively interviewing skills when it comes to building a CPS case. And you will also be able to apply your effective interviewing skills to your family assessments and your investigations, and you'll be using open-ended questions, closed-ended questions, probing questions, clarification questions, and summarization. You will know what each one of those means by the time we finish this course. Any questions so far? No? Okay. Can you guys hear me pretty good?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. So, we're going to start off by introducing ourselves. As I said before, I am Tiffany Bowen. I am the instructor for today's class as the adult learners, new workers, learn CPS. And we'll start with you.
My name is Bill Bixby.
And any experience interviewing?
No, I'm new to
You're brand new to this?
Right.
Okay. And give us a fun fact about yourself.
I like to skydive.
Like the skydive. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Never done that. That's on my bucket list. All right, who's next?
I'll go. My name is Shabazz Lamar.
Okay. And have you had any experience?
Kind of, sort of.
Kinda,
I
sorta.
was a sexual assault prevention representative.
Okay.
So, and kind of, I do interview from victims actually. So
Okay.
better
Okay.
help the victims out.
And that's part of
Wonderful.
CPS as well. We do interview the victims.
Okay.
Yep. And give us something fun about yourself.
I like to dance.
Oh, what? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And last one is you.
Hello, my name is Marcy Smith. As far as previous experience, I shadowed along in the field before.
Okay.
I didn't do any questions myself, but I was able to observe. And a fun fact about myself, I like to zip line.
Okay. That's on my bucket list too. Well, it's a pleasure to meet each and every one of you today. And we're going to have a good time learning this stuff. Some things I say may sound a little crazy, but enjoy the ride with me, okay? All right, let's get started. So, we have our case study of Hannah. I put the case study of Hannah now so that you can think about how you're going to prep your questions for Hannah. So, I'm going to ask that someone reads Hannah's case out loud, and you do also have it in front of you so that you don't have to read it from the screen.
All right.
Okay.
All right, so the case of Hannah. It has been reported to the local child welfare department by a mandated reporter that 10-year-old Hannah arrived at school today with a black eye and bruises on her arms and face. Hannah went to the nurse during school hours for ice because she was hurting. The nurse asked Hannah, "What happened, Hannah?" Hannah replied, "My dad beat me because I had a letter sent home from the teacher about not turning in my homework." Hannah stated that her dad drinks a lot after work and her mother is at work after school. Hannah stated that her mother saw her bruises and stated that she should have done her homework. The nurse provided Hannah with ice and sent her back to class. The nurse also called CPS, who came to the school to get a visual of Hannah's bruises. So, where do we start with interviewing the key members of the case, and what questions would you ask in interviewing the key members of this case?
Thank you, Marcy, for reading that out loud. This is so that you can ponder on these questions as I go on through the lesson, because they tie into the lesson. I presented this to you first because I wanted you to see what happened to Hannah. Hannah had bruises on her face and her arms. So that tells us that there's some type of abuse going on in Hannah's home, correct?
Yes.
All right, so we're going to go into our lecture. And so in our lecture, I'm going to ask you questions, talk to you about the family assessments. I'm going to talk to you about mandated reporters. I'm going to talk to you about just building that puzzle piece for CPS. So our first slide is family assessment versus investigations. A family assessment is a process gathering and evaluating information and formulating conclusions regarding family functioning specific to child abuse and neglect that presents complaint, allegations, and family needs related to child safety and risk of future abuse or neglect. Investigations. Investigation means the collection of information to determine the immediate safety needs of the child, the protective and rehabilitative services needed of the child, and the family that will deter abuse or neglect, risk of future harm to the child. So, with the family assessments, in CPS you'll get different calls of abuse, neglect. Abuse means physical abuse. Neglect meaning that you have a latchkey kid that just goes home and is underage and shouldn't be left at home alone, or a dirty house or things of that content. So you will build a family assessment off of that. So if you got a call, say you're sitting at your desk and you got a call stating that Johnny came to school with a broke arm and he told his guidance counselor that his dad pushed him into the wall or something of that content, that would be considered under a family assessment because it's not criminal. So with the family assessment, you're going to build a case. You're going to talk to the victim, which is Johnny and Hannah in this case. And then you're also going to talk to the alleged abusers, which will be the father. The father is considered an alleged abuser because the victim told us that's who did it to him. So in my opinion, no facts, you should also interview the parent first. You have to interview all the parents. You have to interview the victim, but the victim goes first. And most of the time, you will want to try to catch the victim while they're at school, which is a child. So you'll catch a child while they're at school, and then you have an obligation to call the parents as soon as you talk to the child. You do not need permission to speak to the child in the family assessment. You do not need permission because by state law, you can go and speak to the child, but you have to notify the parent after you speak with them. And so you build your family assessment off of your interviews when it comes to interviewing the child, the mother, the father, and the guidance counselor. Those are the 4 key people that you will notify in that situation. In the case of Hannah, you're going to talk to Hannah at the school. You're going to take pictures of Hannah because she has bruises. And one thing I learned is that you have to be able to identify the face. So I kept missing taking pictures of the child's face to put in the record, but I had to drill them. So you have to take a picture of their face, you have to take a picture of their bruises, and you'll see, how the case builds. So you'll talk to Hannah, you'll go talk to dad, you'll go talk to mom, and you'll also talk to the nurse because she made the report. Nurses, teachers, doctors, anybody in a higher position of medical, things like that, they are mandated reporters. So they are obligated, if a patient comes into their office and has a bruise and the parent is acting funny or any type of suspicion of child abuse or neglect, they are to report it. Whether there is being abused or whether it's suspicious, it can be reported. An investigation is done if there's sexual abuse. If there's sexual abuse, investigation off the bat. You have to notify your Commonwealth attorney. You have to notify the police department. And there's supposed to be a detective that goes along with you on these investigations. And so you have to know the proper things to say in this situation. Any question?
Can you give another example of family assessment versus an investigation?
Okay. So a family assessment, I'll use this as an example. I received a call one day and I had to go to a home because the complaint was that there were 3 children under the age of 10 and the house was dirty. There was no food. It was animal feces all over the floor. Well, of course, we can't make people clean their homes, but they have to be up to safety, safety codes or whatever. And so, so basically, that's considered a family assessment because it's kind of minor, but then it's not minor, but it's not criminal. Right. So if it becomes criminal, where we go in and we find something else, it can be turned into an investigation versus a family assessment. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
So if you went to the house and it was dirty or whatnot, and it was the child was dirty, no running water, nothing like that, that's still considered
a family assessment.
All right. So now, if you find drugs, alcohol, or weapons in the house, would that then turn to investigation?
Then it goes into investigation because then they have to contact law enforcement.
Gotcha.
And even with the water not working, it still turns into a family assessment, and it's still like a precaution. So they know you're never supposed to be in a house without running water, especially with children.
What about no food?
And no food, yeah. So basically, the family assessment allows us to look into community resources instead of removing the child from the home.
So it's not considered child endangerment?
It's considered neglect.
Okay.
But
is it criminal?
No, not in all cases. All cases is not neglect. I mean, not endangerment. But it just all depends on how the worker handles the situation. But there are community resources that you can try to, let's say the parent has a lack of income, doesn't have the money, and then somebody calls and says that she doesn't have any food and things of that content. So you want to try to put the parent in a position to where they can, work into the community, like the food pantry, things of that content. The case is still open for 45 days. 30 days, and then you can get an extension for 15 days. But 30 days is when we try to close the family assessments. And the same thing here, but you can get an extension as well. But basically with a family assessment, these are more common in investigations, more than so pinned in the area. But this is where you gonna work a lot here. But the same procedures for here as for here, just a tad bit different when it comes to who you have to call, investigators and all that good stuff out to the home. Let's jump into our questions. So now we're going to talk about how to formulate our questions and what type of questions we can ask in Hannah's case. As you see on your handout in front of you, Hannah, has been through some things, So Hannah's going to be the first person you're going to interview. So when it comes to open-ended questions, the questions is phrased in a way that suggests the answer will require more than a 1 or 2 word phrase. So when it comes to asking Hannah questions, you have to have an open-ended question that allows her to share a story. And also, this type of question is less leading. The open-ended question does not capture all details clearly. So you can't let them give you yes, no when it comes to open-ended questions. And also, those questions are mostly used to get a broad, general information about the case. So examples I have here is, what do you do to discipline Hannah? What did you do to discipline Hannah when that happened? So this is almost like you're talking to her father, because she has bruises on her face and her arms. So here we want to find out, what did he use to, hit Hannah? So he's going to give us a detailed information, or he's going to say 2 words anyway. I hit her with my fist, just an example. Another example is, what were you thinking when you heard that? So that's a question we can ask for the nurse. What was she thinking when she heard Hannah say that her dad beat her and left bruises on her because she didn't do her homework? So an open-ended question is phrased in a way that suggests the answer will require more than 1 or 2 word phrase. So keep that in mind. Any questions on open-ended?
No.
Okay. As we have no questions on that, we will move on to closed-ended questions. So closed-ended questions, the question is phrased in a way that suggests the answer will be short and focus on details.
Straight to the point.
Straight to the point.
All right.
Okay? These questions are more leading. So these questions are going to lead into a spill. And basically, like if you ask me, like, how did you get that flat tire? And I'm going to say, I rode through the neighborhood and got a nail in my tire, and I probably shouldn't have been riding through the neighborhood, as an example, because you're leading me into what happened to my tire. And then this helps focus in an interview and bring meandering client back to topic, which means if your client goes on a tangent and starts talking about something else, this question can bring them back to the topic at hand. Examples I found that I used was, did you spank Hannah? Did you spank Hannah with the belt? So this is directed to the point. Did he spank Hannah with a belt? He's going to say, no, I didn't spank Hannah with a belt. And so this one gets you more to the point, and it leads the person into their story.
So you be careful with the leading type of...
Yes. Be very careful at your usage of how you lead into your questions, because you don't want to say the wrong thing, because they can always turn it around and say, well, you said this, and like if you said, did you use that belt to spank Hannah, didn't you? Mm-hmm. That's like an accusation, so you've accused, so you want to be careful of how you word those questions.
As well as you don't want to kind of not manipulate.
Right, to get your answer, to get your story. No manipulation. So probe questions. It's a question that to use to clarify information, details, or vague answers. Probes are used to encourage clients to continue talking. So you and I could be in a conversation and you stop talking. I'm going to say, you said Hannah was having trouble in school. Can you tell me more about that? Right. That's because you haven't given me enough questions, enough story to my question that I asked you previously. And I put this here because probing questions are not really the best questions to use when you are interviewing. And I wanted to do an example of probing questions because we know that they're not. So random probing questions are often referred to as going fishing. These questions are sometimes used when facts are not known. So we don't want you to go fishing for the answer by just giving random questions about, what he did to Hannah or what's Hannah's doing in school. He said that Hannah's having trouble, but you don't want to say what type of trouble is Hannah having. Is she cutting class or anything like that? You want the client to tell you what the trouble is that Hannah's having in school. Okay. Any questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Clarification. Self-explanatory. Clarification is used anytime the interview feels confused. Anytime you feel confused, feel free to clarify what they gave you. So clarification is used to check that the interviewer actually understands what the client intended to communicate. Example, you said your father is crazy. What did you mean by crazy? We need an explanation about what you mean by crazy. Is he diagnosed with bipolar? Is he, schizophrenic? We need to know what that is. So basically, if you're confused on the story that they gave you, clarification is the best way to get the best answer from that. Alright, it's summarization. Summarization is used during the interview, at the end of the interview, and at the start of subsequent interviews. So basically, you're going to reiterate everything that was said with that conversation with that client when you interview them. So the example I have here, where Miss Smith, last time we met, I remember that you were going to go apply for daycare assistance. I had promised to check into other funding that may be available. Is that still what you remember? So basically bringing it back to her memorization of what you had already talked about previously. And so then you can go back and verify your notes to make sure that you're on track. So when you go back to your office and you build your case, you got an understanding of what happened. So you don't have to call the client back and say, did we talk about that? Because this happened to me before, sorry. I forgot to make notes and it happened to me. But you have to come out and say, did that happen? Did I do this? So you don't want to do that. That's bad as a new worker. Because they're looking at you like you don't really know what you're doing. So that's, So when you get out in the field, you want to be equipped. So you want to remember this stuff. And you want to be able to walk into the client's house and be on spot about, I know what I'm here for. You have your notepad, you take your notes, and you have your questions formulated, if you can, before you get there. Because that's helpful too. Do we have any questions on anything we just talked about? Open-ended, closed-ended, summarization, probing, anything? No?
No.
Man.
Alright, well here's the fun stuff. The fun stuff is that we get to work together.
Okay.
Yay! Hey! Group activity. So you all have a case study with Hannah. I'm going to put Hannah's case study back up. Okay. So Miss Margaret over here read the case of Hannah for us. So it has been reported that to the local child welfare department by a mandated reporter that 10-year-old Hannah arrived at school today with a black eye and bruises on her arms and face. So right there, what is that?
That's physical abuse.
Physical abuse. What type of case is this going to be?
Investigation.
No, I'm sorry, family assessment.
Family assessment. Because he hasn't been criminally charged for this. Okay?
And so, at what point does he become criminally in charge?
If the police officer is called and if the dad has charges pressed against him.
So what if the daughter physically verified
Mm-hmm.
and clarified that it was her father's doing?
Mm-hmm.
The reason why he did it was he intoxicated or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
He did it. That's still
Worse-
because he left marks, right?
Worst, right. Because he left marks, it's still considered physical abuse. But worst case scenario, it would only become an investigation pending the location that you're a CPS worker in. 2, pending if the police are called and mom wants to press charges on dad for what he did because she's a minor. So she can say, but mom has to pursue the charges because she's the guardian. Right. And we'll talk about that. But according to most locations, and if I'm right, they will make this a family assessment because apparently they need some
They need food.
some community resources in there.
Right.
They need to figure out how to make this kid not a latchkey kid. Now, it also depends on the injury because in some locations they'll remove her. They will do a immediate emergency removal out of the home pending the injuries. But if her injuries are like
What if
Let's
there
see.
was evidence of sexual assault?
evidence of sexual assault and if she stated that, then it would turn into an investigation.
Okay.
I
Because
think that it is good that it's a family assessment because what if she got beat up at the bus stop? And they
right.
said it was her dad.
So you have to prove that dad actually did it. Hannah could have said that because Hannah may have been mad at her dad because he may have fussed her. She could have went in there and self-inflicted herself.
Right.
Because there could be a mental issue that's happening that we don't know about Hannah. You know, so because we're just walking into the case. Dad could have been outside cutting grass and Hannah could have been upset because her teacher sent a note home and she knew that she was going to get in trouble. You know, so if I do this, and this has happened, the kids will do this and try to put the blame on the parents. So that's why you have to, if you do it as a family assessment, that way you can figure out what community resources need to be in place in the home or if the child's really being abused by her dad.
Agreed.
And if that is the case, in my situation, the supervisor will say, you know what, we need to turn this into an investigation. He needs to be criminally charged.
So I have a question.
Yes,
Let's say
sir.
the mom verified the story that Hannah gave. Would that be cause for an investigation or would still
It
be an
can
assessment?
be. It can be cause for investigation. It just depends on the extent of the injuries and the extent of the injuries and whether or not the supervisor over the CPS worker wants to press charges.
So it's
Okay.
case by case.
It's case by case, right? And you have to kind of like, so when you do that first interview, those first couple interviews with mom, dad, and Hannah, I would take my stuff back to my supervisor and say, this is what I got. So I feel like this needs to be an investigation. Something's not right in this house, blah, 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 blah. And she'll say, well, let's make it an investigation. Let's criminally charge him. Let's, get somebody on the line with this. And then it turns into an investigation and you start working along with a detective. But coming from a smaller locality, it's more of a family assessment because you want to try to put the community resources in there. Find out why dad is drinking so much. Can we send him to AA? What can we do to get him right? So, with this group assignment, you guys have your case studies in front of you. We are going to work together to create open-ended questions for Hannah, closed-ended. Actually, we're just going to do open-ended questions and we're going to do clarification and summarization. So, we're going to talk about what we're going to say to Hannah when we get to Hannah. Okay, so we're going to go to the school. We're going to go see Hannah. We're going to talk to Hannah privately. We're going to tell Hannah who we are. We're going to say, hey, Hannah, I'm Tiffany from Child Protective Services. I received a call that, because you have to introduce yourself. You know, make them clear who you are, your name badge. Make them feel comfortable. You want to talk to them about school. You want to talk to them about their grades. You want to say, you know, well, do you know why I'm here today? Because most of the time they do know why you're here.
One thing you don't want to do is make yourself seem like an authoritative figure,
Yes.
right?
Yes. You want to make the child as comfortable as possible. That's the only way you're going to get the information that you need. So when we get to Hannah, what would you do? What would be your first question to Hannah after you introduced yourself? We're going to work this thing as a group.
I'd ask Hannah, how's everything going? How's school? You know, is she having any problems in school? And then I would lead into, you know, her family, her home life.
So doing an open-ended question as the examples that we have here, what would be your open-ended question that you would formulate for Hannah?
How are classes going?
Okay. How did it make you feel when your dad hit you? Because then Hannah's going to really tell you how it feels. After you've introduced yourself, things will come. That's an example of an open-ended question. How did it make you feel when your dad hit you? Hannah's either going to tell you it made her feel sad, it made her angry, it made her mad. Hannah's going to tell you how she feels at that point. And she may never stop talking. She may go through a whole bunch of emotions. And then you got a solid foundation on how it made Hannah feel.
Another question could be, how often does it happen?
Yes.
Or would that be more of a closed-ended question?
Yes, that's more of an open-ended.
Okay.
Because she'll give you a backstory.
When it first
She'll tell you another time it happened. She'll tell you something that happened prior to that. So you'll get more information to build your case. So I'm Hannah and I say, well, how often, you're asking Hannah, you know, how often does that happen? Well, my dad, you know, every time he gets drunk and I say something wrong, or if I say something to him, he yells at me, fusses at me, and then sometimes he'll just punch me, you know. So you're going to get a backstory, and then you're going to hear, because she's 10, so you're going to hear, well, the other day I was outside and I was just playing skipper rock and he told me to stop and I just threw another one and he came and just choked me, you know.
Right.
So you're going to get more of a backstory of what's really going on.
Gotcha.
Okay? All right, Corey, let's get you to do a Shabazz, a closed-ended example. And so this will be an example for the father. What would you say to the father when you interviewed him about what happened to Hannah?
I wrote that down. Hold on. Why did you hit Hannah?
There you go. Why did you hit Hannah? Because he's going to tell you why he hit her. He's going to say it's leading, because it's leading him right into what he did. He's going to say, I hit her because a note came home. Or he's going to say, I didn't touch her. Hannah's making this stuff up.
Or I can ask him, what does he consider discipline? Disciplining a child? Is that an open end or closed end?
You can say something like this, like, how did you discipline Hannah with a belt? Or something like that. You can do that. Because those are the ones you want to start off like that. All right, and then our last one we're going to do is clarification. Let's do a clarification question.
Okay.
Did you write that down?
Sure.
Okay.
So you're saying that when your dad drinks, you say he's not himself. What do you mean?
There you go.
I like
When your dad drinks, you say he's not yourself. What do you mean? Because then that way Hannah's going to tell you, I mean that he's angry.
Or he's not normally like that. Or
He's not his normal self. So Hannah's going to tell you how it is when his dad drinks. And then she's going to go back to occasions and occasions and occasions about what happened. Okay? Well, we are towards the end of our lesson. And if you have any questions, comments, we're going to recap some things. And we've already gone through clarification, open-ended, and we've gone through family assessments and investigations. Now you know what a family assessment is. Who can tell me what a family assessment is?
you get a report from
A caller.
Yeah, from a caller,
Mhm.
whether it's from someone in school, a neighbor, or
Mhm.
whatever the case may be, and they say that there's a concern,
Mhm.
and it's your obligation to go and investigate.
Mhm. And you investigate it by opening up a family assessment because depending on the case, it could be something that community resources could do. Investigations.
Investigation is when the police are called.
Mhm.
and
Police are
it's a
called.
formal complaint done through the police department.
Okay. And the police are along with you through the investigation. And what's the one thing that is guaranteed in investigation?
Sexual abuse.
Sexual abuse. Okay, so when you do that, your questions are going to be completely different with sexual abuse, because then you have to record and you have to have all this other kind of stuff. It's and very, very, very intense. Very intense.
So with the question, do you feel safe at home? Would that be a closed-ended?
That is very close, and that's a great question. Do you feel safe at home? Because the child will tell you whether or not she's safe.
Gotcha.
Okay. Any more questions, comments?
No, ma'am.
No? Well, you guys get incentives. So, this is for you.
Thank you.
This is for you.
Muchos. Allah Akbar.
And this is for you.
Thank you.
Thank you for participating in the lesson today. And I hope that when you guys go out into the field, you are ready to be a CPS worker. Thank you so much.
Thank you.